On this episode of my so-called podcast, we'll be taking you back to February 27th, 1998.
To discuss Ray of Light by Madonna and Alex Proyas' Dark City. Welcome to my so-called podcast. I'm Gary Linton.
I'm Eric Spiegel.
Hey, Eric.
Hi, Gary.
How you doing?
Super.
All right.
How are things with you?
Things are well, thanks.
What is this?
This is a podcast where we go back to a week in the 90s and we look at an album and a movie that were released the same week or within a week of each other. You know, it's
Pretty close in this case, about 5 days. They were definitely released in the same week.
Nice.
Yeah, this week we'll be taking you back to the week of February 27th, 1998, where, you know, we had a little Madonna, a little Dark
February
City.
27th? Was that a leap year?
Sorry,
I didn't.
Well, February 27th was a day.
Right, but the 29th was. Did we experience the 29th that year?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
The one thing I could tell you is that if there was a 29th, everybody was going to see Titanic that day.
Okay.
That was what was going on in the world. And not Dark City.
Not
mostly.
Dark City?
Yeah. So that's our shtick. We're going back to that week. How do we usually dive in, Gary?
Well, we have a guest first before we dive in. Did you want to introduce our guest?
We have a guest?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. We have a guest this week. He's the most famously known as the composer of our theme song.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's his claim to fame.
Uh-huh. And then if you scroll to the very bottom of his Wikipedia page, he's also my father, John Spiegel. Welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Dad? Should I
say
Dad?
Don.
You can say Don.
You can call
I'm going to say
me
Mr. Spiegel.
Don't. Come on. Well, this is very confusing. If you call him Mr. Spiegel, we're officially Wayne's World, so you can't do that.
Okay.
So, welcome. I guess before we go into trivia, maybe we'll talk a little bit about why we're doing these topics, because that we let the guest usually pick.
I was the one who came up with the idea for Dark City. I asked you if we had done that and you hadn't, so I entered a request to be involved with this one because I'm a big Dark City fan.
Okay.
Oh, okay. You have that to look forward to in the second half of my so-called podcast.
So,
now,
you're welcome, Madonna. You're just Sloppy Seconds album podcast.
I originally was talking about doing NSYNC, but I got a bad date.
Right. Just so like anybody who dated Nick from the Backstreet Boys.
He was a bad date? Oh, you sound like you're talking from experience.
No, Nick Carter. He's one of the hashtag MeToo boys.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Nobody from NSYNC.
I bet Lance Bass was a bad date in those days. Cause
if you were a girl.
Exactly, right.
Right. So we usually ease our way into the 90s with a little trivia.
Yep.
These trivia questions will be all from 1998. I got 7. Gary's got 5. What do we play to? 10?
No, 20.
20.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're playing the long game here.
Well, we could play to 10 if you want.
No, I already owe you steaks for the last one.
Sure.
Whoever wins owes the other person steak. Because we think it'd be more interesting with steaks.
Yeah, that gets less funny every time we say it.
But you never know. You could be a first-time listener of the podcast. And welcome to you. You always assume that people are listening to this have heard every episode.
You're right. Yeah, I shouldn't assume.
I feel like there's very few people that have heard every episode. I mean,
I've not even heard every episode.
Okay, but I have. Me and Chris Radcliffe.
That's right.
But, you know, there could be some Dark City heads out there that are coming in just for the... And welcome to you, Dark City heads. But anyway, there's stakes. If somebody
Wouldn't they be
gets
called
to 20.
Dark Citizens instead of Dark City heads?
Oh, yeah. Well, I want to add heads to everything. Because I called the fish people fish heads, but they're fans.
Oh, right.
With a PH
fans.
instead of deadheads. Yeah, I like that, Dark Citizens.
Right.
Citizens United.
Okay.
Anyway, Gary.
Yep.
Since I'm winning, I will ask you first.
Okay, and feel free to chime in if you know.
So you're a phone-a-friend. You can help either one of us,
but not much.
Right. Well, as much as you feel comfortable.
Exactly.
Or you can give bad information to the person you want to lose. That's your prerogative as a
because
guest.
stakes are involved.
That's right.
There's stakes. What televangelist, Gary, was ridiculed for trying to out Tinky Winky?
Was that the baker, right? Do you remember that? I want to go with or Falwell or those are my two evangelists. Is Baker? Do you know somebody?
I try to forget them.
Okay. I'm gonna go with who's the 700 Club? Do you remember him? 700 Club. He is. I don't have a name. I'm gonna go with Baker, whatever his first name is.
Jim Baker.
Jim Baker.
But that's
you.
not him.
No. Okay.
It's Jerry Falwell.
No.
You said his name.
Well, right.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a 50-50 chance. Is Jerry Falwell the 700 Club?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't care.
Nor do I, but okay.
So, I have a thought, Dad. Did Heinlein predict the mega church TV televangelist in Stranger in a Strange Land?
Yes.
Because he did, right?
Pretty much.
They would do like a drop-down screen after church service, and they'd
football.
Show football and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's like the 50s. That's before any televangelists. Early 60s.
1961.
So, I can't do this card, Eric. Because what movie title was an anagram of Rocket Boys when Homer Hickam book? It was the
Oh, we already did that one. Sorry.
So,
how do you feel about that
Let
card?
me see this card.
Is that your card?
I like it. We're going to go with what new nickname did Niagara Falls get in 1998 once Canadian men began crossing the border in droves to have prescriptions filled? Sorry, that's not a very good question. What new nickname did Niagara Falls get in 1998?
Oh, Viagra Falls.
Oh, yeah, good call.
Ooh.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah. Okay. What actor got a record 11th Oscar nom in 98?
I want to go with Meryl Streep, but do you think they're saying she would be an
Actor.
actress? So
This is not a
actor?
progressive card.
Okay. So, what actor? I'm going to go Dustin Hoffman is my other guess then for actor. Wait.
It's Jack Nicholson.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I guess he was in As Good as
It
It
was
Gets.
good. Yeah, you're right.
And people eating noodle salad. I just put a package of bacon in my
It looks like, it
pocket.
sounds like Jack Nicholson, but I don't ever remember him doing that with his hand. Do you remember that Saturday Night Live sketch where they're like fans on his head, blowing his hair back?
No.
Okay, that's fine. What gender bender titled an autobiography, Letting It All Hang Out?
The RuPaul?
Yep, that'd be correct.
That's correct. That's 2 for me and 0 for you.
That sounds about right.
Hard
That's how
for
this
you to
round's
catch up
going.
in this round.
Yeah, what'd you do? You put your card away, Eric.
Where
I think you put it in the box.
Oh, weird.
So,
Why did I do that?
I guess you thought you were done.
Possibly, but they shouldn't go back in the box.
No.
What left-handed former Wimbledon star played right wing for the Aspen Mother Puckers women's hockey team?
You have any guess? I don't know, left-handed. I'm going to go with Martina Navratilova. But I don't know, just because... All right, yeah, nice.
You are correct, sir. Yes!
Yes. What nemesis shared Time's Men of the Year honors with Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton's male nemesis. Kenneth Starr?
That's correct.
Ooh. Woo! All 3 giving me 10. And you're up to 6.
Nice. I got you right where I want you.
Nice. So that was a good trivia round.
Yeah, I guess.
For me.
Oh, ouch. That's below the belt.
That Kenneth Starr one was me being smart.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He's the dumbass Robert Mueller, basically.
Yeah, yep.
Although, I feel like a good president sniffs the air and realizes, I'm about to be impeached. I'll resign and let the country work
so you're
properly.
saying Nixon was a good president? That's your stance right here.
There is a precedent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like, okay, a good president that's done something impeachable.
Okay.
An honorable bad president?
I don't think you got this. Eric, we got the top 10
I think
singles
I could
that were...
say a lot of things that Nixon did that were a good president. There's a lot of things he did that were super shady, but at least he was smart.
Yeah.
For the love of God.
He can govern.
The further we get from him, the more he looks like a good president. The more I'm like, Watergate.
That's right. Yeah, but he just wanted to get ahead.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Get a life, WAPO. Fake news.
Yeah. No, don't do that.
The failing WAPO, and they're all the president's men.
That's right.
Gary, what do we do next?
You're going to tell me the top 10 singles that were burning up the charts when Madonna released her eponymous album. Am I using that correctly? Eponymous?
No.
Oh, okay.
Wouldn't that have been the first one?
Yeah, probably. Eponymous does mean self-titled.
Yeah, so is our
but it is a good word.
Yeah, right.
You do get points for that.
Yeah, I think the one with borderline on it is called Madonna.
It is?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, so anyway, 18 years later, here comes...
Ray Light.
Ray of Light, the eponymous.
Yeah, exactly.
Number 10 on the charts that week was P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, and the Family with It's All About the Benjamins.
Oh, yeah, that's a good song.
How does that go?
It's all about the Benjamins. And then as a guitar, well, was that a remix or because there's like a guitar solo part, a pretty hard rocking guitar solo part.
Maybe Slash was our.
Maybe, I don't know.
Number 9, Destiny's Child with No No No.
Say my name, say my name.
No No No.
Oh, I was wrong.
Number 8, Boyz II Men, A Song for Mama, which I think was on their album 3, which was their third album. But they were Boys 2 Men.
Uh-huh.
So 2 would be more eponymous than 3.
Right. So
3 wasn't a big hit.
5?
I don't
if
think
I add them together.
Number 7, I Don't Wanna I don't ever want to see you again by Uncle Sam.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know after he went when he left Army recruiting, he went into
he was like, I want you, and then after he got tired of like you're like, hey, you didn't pick up after yourself in the bathroom, he was like, I don't, he's pointed directly at you and he said, I don't ever want to see you again. Number 6.
That glitter all over me.
How do I want to live without you? Without you.
Mumblecore? Is that what we're
That's Leanne Ryan. How do I? Right. Number 5, Truly, Madly, Deeply.
Savage Garden.
Yep. Together Again was number 4 by Janet.
Oh, yeah.
Number 3, Getting Jiggy With It by
Big Willie Style, Will Smith.
And number 2, Nice and Slow.
Don't remember. No.
Usher.
Oh, okay.
And if it's 1998 and it's early in the year, it's got to be Titanic. Number 1 is
My Heart Will Go On.
My Heart Will Go On by
Celine Dion.
Yeah, I don't know how many times in the history of the world or this podcast it's been the number 1 song is also the number 1 movie.
Yeah, it's been.
There's not that many times, right? You think it's common?
No, maybe not. I don't know.
I think it's fairly uncommon.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, Celine Dion.
So, yep, she recorded that album and it went to the top of the charts.
Well, she just had the 1 song on the album. James Horner was the composer. And so basically it was all of his score and then that song. But it did go to the top of the charts, for sure. Gary, do we do anything else on this podcast? Yeah,
so I'm trying to get together a either or for Madonna's 1998 release, Ray of Light.
So, did you want to ask Don?
I do. I'll ask Don.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
It's either.
I'm ready.
You ready?
It's a question in an either or format. I'm not sure if you've listened to the podcast.
Oh, yes. I am familiar.
So, in the 80s, we all know Madonna was a huge superstar. And in the early 90s, she was acting, doing some crazy albums. Like, I don't think Erotica was really that big of an album. She was making books.
Erotica and the Sex Book were
together
concurrently. Yeah, right. It was a multimedia platform.
So, Ray of Light is either Madonna kind of throwing in the towel on that experimental phase and just accepting her pop star roots, or it's just another album in Madonna's canon and... I don't know what the opposite of her throwing in the towel. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Well,
yes, either she's
I do.
Continuing to experiment or she's playing it safe.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's how I want to phrase that. Thanks, Eric. You always pick me up. Hey, that's why we do this podcast together.
Everybody needs a good editor.
When I started looking into this, I had never heard the entire album. I had heard cuts off of it, but that's about it.
Same.
Yeah, same.
And I thought about Madonna, and the first thing that came to mind was this phrase, which is the idea of the phoenix being constantly reborn. And the thing that came to mind was the same Madonna, different outfit.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
Which is how I went into it. But after listening to this, I don't think that's really what happened here. I think she really made a conscious decision to go in a different direction. She was trying for something not different to be different, but because she wanted to go that way.
Yeah.
And that had to do a lot with her daughter being born.
Right. A lot of songs about her daughter, the lullaby track.
The being in Evita, where she actually took singing lessons, which I think that really shows that she was serious about that movie.
She always wanted to be Evita.
Yeah, she wanted to do a good job, and I think that has carried over into this album.
Did you see
because
Evita?
Yes.
I saw Evita in the theaters.
Hey, he's patting himself on his back.
You do get points for that.
Yeah.
It was long. I like Antonio Banderas fine.
There you go, folks. Eric Spiegel, Evita. I like Antonio Banderas fine.
Well, I mean, it's hard to translate a big musical into a movie, and Andrew Lloyd Webber is. I mean, he's sort of like the Nicholas Sparks of Broadway. Like, you either dig it or you're left out.
Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yes! I mean, yeah. Anyway. So you would say neither. She's not trying to be an experimental, nor is she going back being a pop star.
She's experimenting, but in a very concentrated direction. She had a couple of producers that she worked with before and actually wrote some songs, a couple of them that ended up on this album. But she wasn't happy with that, and that's how she ended up finally with Willie Morbid. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I remember about her saying is that they took 4 months to do this, which is a long time.
Yeah.
It's a long time to do an album. They took
Right,
4 months.
Like Peter Gabriel long, but it's long.
Well, Eric Johnson long. But she said they worked constantly and they had to let things go. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to make them too perfect. Now, I don't know how more perfect they could be. The production value on this
they're very
is
precise.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I agree with definitely the concept of it being very earnest. Mm-hmm. I feel like erotica and the sex book to a certain extent were very, if not calculated, intentionally provocative.
Well, yes.
Like, I'm trying to do something with my fame. And the Truth or Dare movie, which would be, I think, a good podcast.
Yeah.
Definitely shows her, like, sort of, you know, in an Andy Kaufman-ish kind of a way, like playing with the amount of fame she has towards the camera and twisting it and all this stuff. But I do feel like, I mean, you know, there's a song, a lullaby to her daughter that was just born on the album. And so a lot of the stuff
she wasn't
on this...
born on the album. I don't remember that track.
No. No. She finished the album.
Oh,
Made sure she gave birth on the album.
Give me a copy of Ray of Light.
No. There's a lullaby on the album. And what I'm saying is like, that's, I mean, could come across as pretty lame, right? She's in her late 30s at this point. And, you know, she's got her Shanti Ashtangi track.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And a lot of songs that really aren't poppy in the sense of lyrics, at least. It's not like I'm in love with you, but you're a cad, or, you know, whatever.
Right.
Kind of the get into the groove. There's no get into the groove.
Right, or
for better or worse.
Vogue.
Right. It should be noted that Get Into the Groove and Vogue are much better songs than anything that's on this album.
Yeah.
A lot of the 80s pop, I think, some of those songs are borderline, for example. Like, I listened to this album, and I was listening to it on Spotify. Mm-hmm. And Spotify, once you're done with an album, will just keep playing, like, in the vein of what you were just listening to. And Borderline started playing, and I was like, oh man, that's a good pop song. It's a good pop song. Like, this album is trying for something very earnestly, I think. But I do think, I mean, I hate to be ageist, but I feel like the fact that she's in upper 30s, and I'm in my upper 30s for another month.
Yeah.
Pop star, doing sort of the trip hop, DJ thing. It does feel a little strained, a little bit at times. And other times it works just fine.
Well, yeah, I think so too. I think she's definitely trying to tap into what was happening in 1998, as opposed to.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, 1992 erotica, where she was trying to
create her own thing.
Yeah.
Although one could say she's always tried to tap into something, whether it be retro with like the True Blue, White Heat, Material Girl, Marilyn Monroe thing.
Yeah.
Or tapping into a different culture, like gay culture with Vogue and things like that. Very much so with the Like a Prayer was like a rebellious FU to the Catholic Church.
Well, and that's also coming from her. Yeah, I mean, that comes from a place where, not that these songs aren't impersonal, but it just seemed more...
I think she's happy. And then she makes this, so it's sort of a little less... It's less edgy, right? But she's a extremely wealthy, successful woman who just had a daughter who she loves, and things are great.
In trying to get some ideas of how to describe this stuff, one of the words that came up for me was mature themes.
Yeah.
It seemed like an adult in the writing, the lyrics, certainly a lot more than the early stuff.
Certainly, as far as lyrics go, and themes, lyrical themes, she's straining for, you got the Beatles that, go to Hamburg and sleep with prostitutes, and then you got the Beatles that get all successful and make movies, and then the Beatles that go to America, and then you got the Beatles that go to India. This is the Madonna that went to India, right? She's looking for something more than being the most famous person in the world, more than being the richest person in the world, more like what's the transcendent? And wasn't she into like the Kabbalah for a while or whatever?
Yoga,
I don't know if
Hindu.
This was
this is the one
before or after. This is
right after.
Yeah.
So, in the Frozen video...
Well, right, yeah. Can we talk about that?
She's wearing, like, a big red or black...
yeah.
Silky
she looks
dress.
like she's from stepped off the cover of Smashing Pumpkins' Adore.
Right.
Right, and so, again, that's also kind of like, that's... I don't know when Adore happened, but that...
After this.
Oh, really? Okay, because I always felt like she was just trying to co-opt that when... But
no,
I must be messing that up in my mind, my memories.
They were at least right around the same time.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. She's a very savvy businesswoman, so I wouldn't put it past her for this to be somewhat calculated, but I would say if I looked at all the stuff that came out in 97 and 98, and if she was going to say, let me latch on to what's popular, she didn't have to do trip hop.
No.
She didn't have to do dance music. She didn't have to do... certainly the very sincere, deep kind of themes.
June of 98 was Adore.
Yeah.
And so...
That's right.
Yeah. But it's still the same kind of... It's the same...
But we'll talk about this with Dark City.
Yeah, right.
The Matrix came out a year later, and they couldn't possibly have been ripping each other off.
No.
It's just like the mass... subconsciousness or something.
Well, yeah, it was kind of the way that women were dressing, dark hair at that time,
but I think she's going also out of her wheelhouse. Like in the Ray of Light video, she's wearing a shirt that buttons like just a couple times up high, so you can see how her abs are still pretty thin, and she does her sit-ups, whatnot.
Yep.
But she's also, transitioning to this Earth Mother goddess sort of figure. Yeah.
And she has denim on the cover, the CD.
I mean, I think the picture on the cover of the CD is definitely
maybe it's not denim.
Trying to show that's like a reflective blah blah blah. But it's like it's a picture you could take of an older woman, like she's transitioning a little bit, which is interesting. Not into a man, but like to an older woman, like an elder statesman, if you will, which has always been difficult for her. And if you look at her next album, Music, which has music, makes the people come together.
Yep, that's it.
Which
that's it.
Is not lyrically deep.
No.
The thing about this one, though, is that it was very successful, wasn't it?
It was. A lot more successful than 1994's Bedtime Stories.
Yeah, so if you look at her 90s oeuvre, this is the number one. This sold almost 4 million copies, whereas...
Grammys?
What?
Got Grammys?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Ray of Light was inescapable. Like you heard Ray of Light at the Cardinal game,
even
at the
I heard
game.
That one.
Yeah, it was everywhere.
And it's a catchy song, though. Yeah, I haven't heard it in a while.
Alicia hated that song, so I would always have to turn it if she was in the car. But I always thought it was fine. I never liked it especially, but I thought it was fine. I really didn't like Frozen that much.
No,
and the other track off this album was The Power of Goodbye, which was fine. Although I think it's very strange that Frozen is the song right before The Power of Goodbye, because if you listen to the lyrics, and I did, Frozen is all about like your heart needs to melt, and then you could be my lover, and I could heal you, blah blah blah. And then in 10, it's apparently like, that did not work. See you later, chump. Maybe they could have separated those with a song, because it's like, I didn't actually mean what I said in track 9.
The thing that I noticed a lot, about the lyrics is that most of the songs, the music helps the lyrics out. There's a couple of them in here where it seemed like the music was more important and the lyrics were kind of added on as an afterthought. But I like that Power of Goodbye. I like that song as the way it was written. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. One of the things that we haven't talked about was the instrumentation on this. And there's a lot of
guitars. A lot more guitar, like obvious guitars. For a trip-hop album, for an electronic album, like I feel like a lot of these songs must have been written on electric guitar. She plays electric guitar, so I imagine her sitting around with an electric guitar plugged into an amp, writing some of these songs, and then it's like, what can we do with this? And then it ends up like that, like. The first 20 seconds is just raw electric guitar, and then we add the bloop, 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 kind of a...
Like
what
Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
Shut your mouth.
The thing that I was talking about, though, was the instrumentation, because there's a lot of... I think of world music, and Peter Gabriel, one of the quotes I saw about her is she didn't want to sound like Peter Gabriel, but she wanted to use the instrumentation of other countries and kind of interweave it with the electronica. Which is really
mission
hard
accomplished, Madonna. You came nowhere close to being as good as Peter Gabriel. There's one. This one, To Have and to Hold, I think sounds quite a bit like world music.
To Have and Not
to Hold. Sorry.
Yes. That one's. I really like the bass line in this song.
No, we'll cut a little bit.
Slap of the bass.
This is the most world music sounding one.
You think? Well, it's the basis of it. The other ones they use it as kind of like seasoning, whereas this one it's the bed that everything else lays on top of.
You could do a merengue, samba.
Ooh, yeah, the Mamba.
Mambo number 5. A little bit of Madonna in my life. I'll tell you what's your favorite track, Gary?
Maybe Swim.
Yeah, that's my favorite track.
Yeah.
And it was funny because it was like, why wasn't this a single? Because that's a good song. I like it.
The only thing I complain about that song is that I felt like it went on too long.
Well, they all go on too long.
I even wrote down the times
minutes
of these because some of them 5:22 to have and not to hold.
Yeah,
that's a
Frozen is
6:21.
Come on, Madge.
You're welcome.
Come on, Madge. And you look back. I mean, the easiest way to critique this. But it isn't trip hop. It's more that trip hop.
Yeah.
Here we'll go to the middle. I'll tell you why I think this is an enjoyable electronic or trip hop or whatever album you want to say. Is that if you do listen to it with good headphones or in your car with the volume way up.
And the kids yelling, turn it down.
No, alone.
Oh, okay.
It's got some good bass and some good noises and some good. I mean, I think that Swim song could go into my regular rotation.
Oh,
actually.
wow! Yeah,
I really like it, and I think some of them are close. But I don't really like Madonna's singing voice.
I tell you, the one that I did like was as far as the singing, was the very first one.
Yeah.
Substitute for Love, Drowned World. And I want to tie that in with our science fiction theme for our movie because
Go ahead. I like it.
Drowned World was the title of a J.G. Ballard science fiction novel. J.G. Ballard was one of the original kind of alternative, new wave science fiction authors after the old guard that I grew up on. All of a sudden, this was more about feel and characters rather than a straight science fiction plot.
Ideas.
So we have that. And the very first thing that I wrote down just as a note while I was listening to this, The Drowned World, was Whale Song. Because that's what I see when I hear the beginning of that song.
There's a lot of like underwater, kind of like getting back to nature and the ocean, kind of getting away from, like as a metaphor, I think, for getting back to what's real. She has this underwater thing that she comes back to a few times.
It's just like water freezes.
And she's like, let it go, let it go.
No, not quite.
The thing about the vocal in
something else.
In that Substitute for Love, I thought, was that her vocals are very subtle. I think the Evita changed the way that she sang. I think, she said there was part of her voice she never used before, and being in that movie helped her develop it, and I think it shows in this. But it's a very subtle thing, but that's probably my favorite vocal.
I think it's actually a really good song. That and Swim and Ray of Light. I think Candy Perfume Girl could have better lyrics, but I kind of like the jam. Skin is a good song. I think Nothing Really Matters is a good song. I think Sky Fits Heaven is like extremely and annoyingly pretentious. Like and that's the criticism you could level at this whole trying to all of a sudden, this sex symbol, like, okay, now I'm about yoga.
All right,
as pretension, right? Like, so, and it made me think, like, so what does that really mean, pretentious? It means like you're trying to sound important, but you don't really know what you're talking about, right? I guess.
Well, this is the stuff that I said the music was primary in that one. That is Sky Fits Heaven, and the lyric was almost an afterthought.
It's not a bad song, like musically, but I wish that one wasn't in like a different language. That was my joke. I thought in my head, but then Shanti Ashtangi actually is in a different language, and that managed to be more pretentious.
Yeah,
than
that one was
track 7. I know that it's meaningful to her, but it's a bit of a stretch for it to be on a Madonna album. And then I felt like Power of Goodbye's fine. To Have It Not Whole is a world music thing. And then the Lullaby Little Star is okay. It is what it is. And then Merle Girl just shouldn't have been on the album. 13 is a bad song. But on the whole, it's pretty solid. I mean, for what it is. Yeah. It's like I judge it for what it is and who it's for. Not necessarily me, which is why I didn't listen to it in 1998. But I don't listen to it and be like, "This is crap."
Right? Yeah.
The last one, Mer Girl. My first note on that was Broadway musical show. That's what it sounds like. I can see that being sung as a slow song during a show on Broadway. That kind of music, the musicals. It does have a very delicate vocal. And then the end of this is very creepy, I think. She's singing about her mother's death, but the one thing I saw about it I thought was particularly odd was that was the day that Gianna Versace died. Her friend died, and she did track this vocal that day.
Oh, wow.
So, singing a song about somebody being dead, when that happened, that may have something to do with the feeling that kind of comes across on this song. I don't like this song, though.
There's not much to it.
No.
It's sort of a half song. But this was Madonna's last hugely successful album. It sold about 4 million copies. Music, the aforementioned Music, sold about 3 million copies, about 2.9. And then after that, it's hard to know what was successful and what wasn't in the music world because it all went to crap. I mean, like, you can't say, albums that don't sell well now aren't successful because who knows what that even means anymore. I mean, at the height of her fame, the Immaculate Collection, which was kind of all the 80s stuff, greatest hits, sold a ton of copies, but that was when everybody was buying stuff, It's like Garth Brooks is like one of the biggest selling artists of all time, but that was back when everybody bought stuff. So who knows what all of it means. We have a rating system. Any more thoughts? One more thought.
William Orbit. I want to get back to him just a little bit because I think he's
to call him Billy Orbit.
Billy Orbit? I like that. He is responsible for a lot of the music here, and then she wrote lyrics after he gave her the initial idea of the song, and then they refined them. But the thing that stuck out for me of this is the electronica, which is very difficult to integrate into these kinds of songs. It can easily sound like sound effects rather than
and in some
music.
Of these songs it does.
Some of those it does, that's right. But some of it is really very well done. And it's really tricky to make it sound decent at all. It's fun to make these noises, but to then put it into a song and make it musical, that's tricky.
Sure, but if you start with that ethos, like Moby or Portishead or Tricky or whatever, like, it's all organic. I do feel like there's definitely a feeling with this album of she wants to add that vibe to songs she already had in her mind because that's what's popular. And I don't begrudge her of that, whatever. But it's just like Scotch taped together a little bit. It's not perfect.
No.
It's not awful. I mean, Ray of Light was a huge hit.
It was a huge hit.
It was huge.
Huge.
All right, I have a rating system.
Yep.
4 stars would be like Ray.
Okay.
3 stars, Peter.
Wait, Ray is the 4 stars and Peter is 3 stars?
2 is Egon.
I'm fine, and of course
1 is
Winston.
Janine.
What? I see.
How many stars will you give Ray of Light, Don?
Because of the production values and listening to the whole thing on headphones every time I listened to it, I liked that portion of it, and I did like her vocals, so I'll give you a 3 out of 4.
Peter Venkman.
Yeah, we can do halves, and I'm going to give it a solid 2.5.
I will also give it a 2.5. I was almost to a 3, but then Little Star and Merry Girl, and I don't like Frozen, so it's not quite a 3.
No, you don't like it.
Yeah.
But there are some songs on here that I never heard before, and actually kind of like. So 2.5. I'll give it a Egon verging into Peter. And the only reason Ray is 4 stars because Ray of Light, dude. Dan Aykroyd was the story by credit. I mean, Bill Murray just showed up.
Also, didn't he co-write the screen? Yeah.
Right.
So.
But he is Bill Murray.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he's
But he's a terrible person.
Bill Murray's a terrible person?
Google it.
Yeah, I mean, I know he's not a nice person, but...
Okay. Boom.
We'll be back.
We will be back in just a second with more 90s action. Hey, welcome back to my so-called podcast.
That was the trailer to the movie we're going to discuss.
Well, there's a lot of words on the screen in that trailer, but yeah. Welcome back to my so-called podcast. I'm still Eric.
I'm still Gary.
And this is Gary. We still have Don Spiegel here. We are still in February 27th, 1998. However, we've transitioned from music to film.
Oh, not from man to woman.
No. And the way we want to do that is by talking about, you went to the movies, you might want to go see Dark City. However, there's some other choices.
Number 10 that week was Caught Up. I don't remember that movie. Number 9 was The Borrowers, which was The Littles. You remember that cartoon?
Is John Goodman in it?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel like that's right.
Yeah.
He's also in Speed Racer, the Wachowskis.
Okay. Yeah, John Goodman.
Pop's Racer.
Number 8 is Senseless. Again, not remembering that movie. Number 7 is Krippendorf's Tribe.
Yes.
Yes.
So that is a story about a failing anthropologist played by Richard Dreyfuss who convinces his family to dress up like a fake tribe in an extremely racist bid to keep his job hilariously in a movie that should never have been made.
I don't remember that one either.
Tribe. It's one of those movies like, if I told you the whole plot, you'd be like, nah, it's not a real movie.
You're pulling my leg. Stop pulling my leg.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Poor Richard Dreyfuss.
Number 6 is Sphere.
Sphere.
Yeah, you remember that one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So Sphere was the second Michael Crichton book that I read after Jurassic Park, and I was like, this guy only writes great books.
Yeah.
Because Sphere is actually a really great book.
Okay.
That movie is not a good movie. But that book's really good. It holds up.
Who's in that movie?
Lots of famous people. Dustin Hoffman, Samuel
right.
Jackson,
Hoffman.
Sharon
That's right.
Stone,
That's
directed
right.
by Barry Levinson.
Yeah.
Should be good. Isn't.
Was not good.
But, Sphere the book. I'll give that a high recommendation.
Antonio
Sphere the movie.
Banderas.
Hard pass.
Number 5, As Good as It Gets.
Yep.
The previous mentioned on here. Number 4, the movie we're talking about this week, Dark City.
Yeah. So it made a little bit more than Jack Nicholson Oscar movie that came out like 3 months before that.
Yeah, 10 weeks before. It was As Good as It Gets was in the 10th week.
So
Dark City.
huge success.
Number 3 was Good Will Hunting, which was out 13 weeks before.
Yeah, how do you like them apples?
Yeah, I like them a lot. Number 2, The Wedding Singer, Adam Sandler, 80s nostalgia.
I still have never seen that.
It's
No.
fine. You have something to
I
say
know
about
there's a
Wedding Singer?
rapping granny.
Yeah, that's true. The granny raps.
That's all I know.
She drops some
It's
sweet
80s.
rhymes.
And
Nostalgia.
you'll never guess what's number 1.
Titanic.
Yeah, you're right.
You guessed it.
Everything's Titanic. Everything's coming up, Millhouse.
Is this the end of Millhouse?
Everything was Titanic at that time. I really think there will never be another Titanic.
There will not.
That movie was.
Except
First
for
of all,
Titanic 2,
First of all,
the re-sinking.
a movie that was more expensive than every other movie ever by 2 times. Second of all, a huge, like, epic, historical, sweeping drama movie, which none of those really get made.
Not anymore, no.
Third of all, it was number 1
Wait, The
for...
Avengers is a story.
No.
I'm pretty sure.
Those get made, Gary.
Oh, okay.
And the other thing was it just made like $20 million every week for like a year. It was the
people
weirdest
kept going.
blockbuster.
People just kept going back to see it over and over.
Well, it was similar to a art house movie in that it wasn't that popular opening weekend, but everybody told everybody to go see it, and then that just kept happening, and that's just not the model anymore. It's like if a movie like Titanic made $20 million the first weekend, they'd be like, well, I'm super flop-tastic.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
out. Yeah,
it's gone.
it's
Let's
done.
remove it from theaters, whatever. And the weirdest thing is that the only thing more popular was Avatar, which is not a good movie.
No, I still haven't seen Avatar.
That's got okay parts, but it's no Titanic.
Well,
which
there'll be another 3 or 4 of those for you to
whatever.
see. Ugh.
Sure. We'll keep telling yourself that.
Exactly. We'll wait.
I'm not waiting.
Right. I mean, I feel like the Antichrist is probably on his way before Avatar 2 hits
Lars
theaters.
von Trier's movie, The Antichrist?
No, I saw that. That was compelling.
Yeah.
The first 10 minutes are the best part of Antichrist.
Okay.
Anyway.
Anywho.
The number 4 movie.
The number 4 movie, yeah, with a bullet. Alex Proyas' passion project.
Yeah. Co-scripted. Story by.
He had 2 other screenwriters, and he really wanted to make this movie even back from film school. And
Really? Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Because I remember I read something about him thinking of the idea of, maybe the scene, but like the movie, the sets changing. He got that idea from watching The Crows.
The Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that was one of those add-ons to it. One of the things that was interesting about it, I thought, was the main character was the detective that went crazy in the original screenplay.
Huh.
Yeah.
He was the one that the whole city was, or the whole movie was
based around.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay, so
let me get back to my either or, guys.
Okay.
Don't jump to gun, okay?
Okay.
All right, so.
Well, it's a false premise. But go on.
No,
go on.
He apparently in film school had an idea about this.
Okay, go on.
That's what I heard. All right.
From Alex told me.
Well, that's what I heard. It's true. You're
all of them are saying.
Everyone is saying that he had this idea in film school. Anyway, either the devotees, the cult following of this movie, are right, or they could find a better movie.
That question goes to our guest.
Okay.
You can always find a better movie, but for this one, and the way that it was done, and especially the way that it looks, I think he did an excellent job. And I think that the reason that people like it more maybe now than they did then was something having to do with the horrendous narration that was added to the beginning of it.
So, wow. So, I saw it with the narration maybe 10 years ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. But my brother-in-law, Gavin, gave me this for Christmas a few years back, the DVD of the director's cut. And so the bonus of having the DVD with the director's cut is not only do I have the non-narration version of the movie with extra 11 minutes, I also have some fairly long documentaries about the creation of the movie and some interviews with the screenwriters, the director, people that were in it. And I found those to be fairly entertaining. So I have some insights into some of that.
Have Roger Ebert.
Yeah, Roger Ebert.
Well, there's a commentary by Roger Ebert.
Oh, really? He liked this movie a lot.
There's 3 audio commentaries on this DVD. One by Ebert, one by the screenwriters, and one by just Proyas by himself. It's pretty extensive.
One of the screenwriters is David Goyer.
Yeah.
And, I can't say
this is a stepping stone to fame for him.
Right, but, he's not proven to be very reliable.
Well, and Lem Dobbs is not a superstar.
What else has he done? I don't even know.
And Alex Proyas' career after this has been, I, Robot with Will Smith.
Which was fine.
Knowing, which I really like. I will defend that movie.
Yeah. I actually like that
Nick
too.
Cage movie.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an underrated cult classic.
I like
the only
that.
reason Knowing, I think, isn't a huge a success is because people are just so used to Nicolas Cage movies being bad at that point that they didn't give that one a chance. But there's a scene I've already talked about this on the podcast. But there's a scene where he knows a plane crash is going to happen, so he goes to the site of the plane crash and walks amongst the rubble right after it happens, and it's extremely harrowing. And that's how he finds out that he has the gift of knowing what's about to happen next. That's the knowing of the title. I really like that movie. Anyway, his next movie after that was Gods of Egypt, which apparently was a super racist shit show, basically.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, so his career is strange. But certainly most notable for having directed The Crow and then this movie, which, you never know. I think that in the 90s, he was the guy who directed The Crow, but maybe on his tombstone is that he directed Dark City. Who knows?
Yeah, right. I don't know what I want to say. Go on.
Okay. So, the movie starts as a sort of neo-noir. a man in a bathtub wakes up in a 1940s-ish motel room-ish apartment where there's a dead woman in the room, and he can't remember anything that happened, right? So from the beginning, we have a genre film kind of thrown at us as like a detective movie, a film noir, a Hitchcock movie, whatever.
And we're actually introduced to Kiefer Sutherland's character before that scene. And he was the one who did the narration, right? Yeah. But
so, I mean, I just want to interject.
Okay. You're not going to interject something into my brain, are you?
Just hold still, Gary.
Okay.
This has all the answers that you want. It'll only hurt for a second.
Right.
That's actually, they got that from Harvey Weinstein.
Was this a Dimension? No, this was New Line Cinema. This didn't have anything to do with it.
Anyway, this maybe is a good movie if it didn't have Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
So he is the absolute weak link here. And he barely redeems it by... I actually think he's fairly good in the last 10 or 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
He sort of drops his affectations and acts for real.
Well, especially in the flashbacks.
Yeah.
The flashback thing, he's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
That's maybe my favorite part of the movie, actually, is that whole dream remembrance, whatever. Spoiler alert. You don't know what we're talking about if we're spoiling it. But that part of it, I thought he was really good in, and from then on out, fine. But what is Kiefer Sutherland doing in this movie? It's like he's doing a version of a guy who's doing a bad impression of William Shatner, is what I feel like Gary, he is doing in this movie.
I didn't get Shatner out of it, but he was definitely weird.
His delivery...
too affected in that it takes you out of what's going on. And for God's sakes, you had to pay attention to this movie if there was no narration at the beginning that spoiled everything and made it all pointless.
Right.
Just like you said, it starts off and you're just thrown into it with no explanation at all.
Right.
And that is a great thing in a movie that doesn't aim from the very beginning at the lowest common denominator.
Well, I mean, if you think about a movie like Memento, which came a couple of years later, that's a movie about a guy who wakes up and what the hell is going on, right? It can be done. You trust the audience. You have to trust the audience. And there's a thing about noir where or Hitchcock, where it's the wrongfully accused man in a situation where he has to get out of it. I feel like, and I try not to do this where I rewrite the screenplay or do it too much.
Do you try not to do that?
I actually don't try to do that, but I just say that and then I do it.
Yeah, and then you do it anyway. Yeah.
But I feel like they could have stayed in the noir or the Hitchcock for a little longer. Let us think. Don't show the strangers for a little while. Just let us think it's a cop movie where it's a guy who's been accused of being a killer. You don't know if he's a killer. The cops are after him, but then you start to realize he's innocent. And then add the weird sci-fi in. I feel like they don't develop the world of the noir before they subvert it. They subvert it fairly quickly with other stuff. So you know it's weird.
Yeah, he meets the strangers really quick. Actually,
they don't hold off on showing them. But I feel like
when he leaves the first room that he was in, that he almost woke up in, that apartment or hotel room, I guess it was.
Yeah,
that's when they introduce those three weirdos coming down the hall, and you know something's up. Because the heck are? What are these guys?
Right. So for the people that haven't seen it, the strangers are pale-faced, bald, expressionless people that sort of float around in leather trench coats.
Yeah, and so it would have been fine having them introduced, but it's the scene where he climbs up to the Shell City or Shell Beach
right away.
Yeah, and then they're floating, and you're like, what is going on?
Right.
And he cuts the head off, and
I mean,
or the top of this.
That's very early in the movie.
Yeah,
right?
Within first 15 minutes, I think.
That definitely is too early, I think.
Right. Maybe. Let's see. I mean, we're reviewing the movie as is, but I feel like a better version of this movie would have it be like, is he crazy? Is he hallucinating these guys? And he's just the killer for a little longer.
Yeah.
That really goes to the whole heart of the movie about the nature of reality. And your memories and who you are.
Which is what this movie's about, right? It's not an action movie. It's not a thriller. It's sort of a existential, science fiction, heady sort of... I don't know. One of the things that I feel like in the documentaries that I watched about making this, they were like, it's not an action movie. It's not a thriller. It's not a... But it's like, what is the genre? Because I don't think they were trying to entertain enough. I feel like a lot of the pieces in this movie are in place to do certain things well, which is like to confuse and to amaze and things like that. But I feel like the driving narrative is really absent from about, like, the first 10 minutes, it's fine, and the last, 20 minutes, but in the middle, it's a little wonky.
Meanders.
Yeah, it definitely does. And, and I mean, this is a flop, a huge flop. And a lot of people are huge defenders of it now, and you could say it's a cult success, but I think that it's possible, and I will go to Matt saying that, the reason it's a flop is because of certain identifiable characteristics that could have probably been fixed to make it a better movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's some things that just don't work, and one of the big plot points that did not work for me is when they put everybody to sleep. The strangers put everybody to sleep, and it's kind of like, wait, so everybody just stops their cars
during tuning?
Yeah,
tuning.
Yeah.
Well, I think they just pause.
But okay, so no, they stop their cars and they go to sleep.
But then when they wake up, but they don't realize they were asleep, and that's why they don't realize they've never seen day.
Yeah, there's...
Right.
There are aspects of this that don't make sense. Mm-hmm. Like what you just said about going to sleep. And you have to almost overlook those for this to keep going, because you'll get bogged down in the inconsistencies of it.
Yeah.
But I think one could argue that the inconsistencies are what create, the main character, or what create the detective that goes crazy, or
Wilkins.
William Hurt's character. People start to...
Walensky.
Yeah, Walensky. And I really like the Walensky scene where he's lost his mind and he's a conspiracy theorist that's drawn on the walls and all the
when John Hurt goes
spirals and everything. So you could say the inconsistencies are something that the strangers are willing to accept, because then those people will kill themselves, or they'll just kill them, or whatever. Who cares? In a lot of ways, they treat the people like cattle, so maybe they don't care if it's not perfect. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this is not a perfect universe. You can't... all he has to do is ask his cab driver, how do you get to Shell Beach? And the cab driver's like, I don't know. I'm not really sure. Right. So it's not even close to perfect.
No.
But I think that's one of the reasons that they tune every night, because nobody has long enough. I mean, that's the reason that the main character, what's his name?
John Murdoch?
Murdoch.
Yeah.
Murdoch.
That's one of the reasons that Murdoch can question as long as he does, because he stays awake during tuning. But if you're asleep during tuning, things change. And if you're asleep during tuning, they can change you.
Yeah.
And so you don't have very long to think about it. You only have a day or two, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
And
that makes sense, I think, internally.
I think the tuning probably reset, and now we're getting into the mechanics of how does this work, but there's two different levels of tuning.
Well, we should explain tuning. Tuning is every night they change the world. The strangers, who are these aliens, who are in dead bodies, spoiler alert, create a new world out of the world that's there. They change who you are, they change your memories, they change what the world looks like, and then everybody wakes up and the world continues. And our hero is aware of all of this. And Kiefer Sutherland is overacting near him.
Yeah, he's kind of aware. He's aware of it also.
Yeah. Hey, he's part of it. He's a big part of it.
Oh, yeah, he injects the memories.
They needed him, he explains that later on.
Yeah.
I'm so torn about the Kiefer Sutherland thing, because I feel like the character as written is actually a wonderful character, because even if you feel like you understand the whole movie, you don't quite understand that character until the very end, right? Mm-hmm. But he's such a terrible actor in the part that you are disgusted with any scene that involves him. Like, it's one of the worst performances of any actor I've ever seen in an okay movie. And I don't think that Kiefer Sutherland's a bad actor. I just think Alex Proyas wasn't able to stand up to him. I think he should have said, like,
well, you don't even know that.
Thank you.
Maybe Proyas was like, yeah, this is how I
do more of that. Yeah. One way or the other, but like, that's not how anybody speaks.
Yeah.
So, you're not Marlon Brando. Like, you're not a genius. Like, just speak like a human being. Like, we actually...
He is brain damaged. Let's face it.
All of them are, though.
That's true.
We need to relate to that character more than any other character, it turns out. And I feel like it just... I don't know. He seems like a robot the way he speaks. I don't know why he made that choice. It's such a bad choice.
It really takes you out of the feeling. And the thing that I see about this movie is that the feeling of it, the way it looks, the way it makes you feel when you look at what's on the screen is maybe even more important than the story. Mm-hmm. Because it's all about the art direction.
Cinematography and art direction are A+, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, and costume design and Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A+ for Jennifer Connelly.
A++. I mean,
2 scenes where she just sings into the camera.
Well, right, yeah, that was excessive.
2 thumbs up for those.
And it's like, I love Jennifer Connelly more than the next guy. And but even those scenes were a little kind of like, well, let's get this moving on.
No, for me, I was like, I'm fine with this.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like the amount that I enjoy, or at least enjoyed Jennifer Connelly in the 90s, made me feel like kind of a creep.
Sure, yeah, oh yeah. You kind of were a creep.
But I blame the Rocketeer.
Well, exactly.
I was so young. I was a youth.
That was her. I blame career opportunities.
That was even before the Rocketeer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, I blame Labyrinth.
No, she wasn't that at that time. I mean, it was like, yeah, she's pretty, but...
She was older than me.
Yeah, but...
Anyway, I just feel like the craftsmanship and the work, obviously. And I think one of the reasons that Ebert is into this more than he named it his number one movie of 1998, right? He loves whenever a movie will create its own world, literally.
Boy. Or we're there.
Like,
yeah, you're right. And
Babe Pig in the City.
Uh-huh.
I think that was his number one movie of that year. Where a movie, it just is just its own encompassed world where these are the rules, this is what it looks like, and you gotta and I'm gonna deposit you in this new world that we've created, with care, lovingly, and you can definitely tell the cinematography, the art direction, the lighting. Or A+.
Well, right, and that's that's all important parts of the film to service the story. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the story is
problematic because I think it's like somebody that got into a certain kind of science fiction and tried to emulate it without being as deft or proficient at it as maybe he thought he was. Yeah. Is my take on it. And I feel like, I don't know. I hate to pick on it because it's already sort of a financial failure or whatever, but it has risen in cult status. And I do dislike that some people are like, this is a masterpiece. This is a flawless masterpiece.
Oh, yeah. There are people like that?
Okay, I have fallen asleep in this movie twice trying to watch it. Okay,
that's better than The Exorcist 3.
Super boring in the middle.
Yeah.
Like, super boring. And, a lot of people say that a lot of the themes in this movie are surprisingly similar to the themes and The Matrix, which came out almost exactly a year later. And I try to do some research on the web of like when were
the web, the dark web.
Yeah, I went dark.
Yeah,
I plugged some cocaine into my computer's USB port
with Bitcoin.
With Bitcoin, yeah. Right.
and
then I stuck some
and an onion router.
Yeah,
right.
using
and then I took some
exactly
black tar heroin and I shoved that into the headphone jack.
Right.
Anyway, I went all dark, and it seems like there's no way that the Wachowskis could have been influenced by the screenplay. It's one of these things where it's like.
No,
it just happened.
Yeah, you'd have to think The Matrix's screenplay was written before how long it takes to make a movie,
right? Well, but if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, it's possible they could have seen the Dark City screenplay while they were writing Matrix.
They were filmed in the same place. There are actually locations in The Matrix that are in Dark City.
Yeah.
For example, when the cars are driving and they stop, that's the same street where Neo goes to meet the people in the car and they take the bug out of him.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
There is a scene where Trinity's phone booth is standing in almost exactly the same position. The camera angle's almost exactly the same as when she's in the phone booth and the truck pulls up. The staircase that they chase him down is the same one that they get chased in.
So we should explain for the uninitiated that Dark City is about the strangers that have created this city for humans to live in, but it's fake. And they sort of reprogram it nightly to sort of learn from us and gain our souls. Yeah. That's the premise.
Trying to figure out what makes us tick because they don't get it.
And to gain from us a way to evolve and
survive.
Blah, blah, blah. Huh. So, very similar to the idea of The Matrix, which if you haven't seen The Matrix... I don't know.
There is the one that can lead everybody out of this
which is not a prophecy in Dark City.
That's true. But there is one character.
Well, there wasn't a
okay.
was there?
And okay, if let's say if the worst case scenario of horrible plagiarism were to occur, which I feel like on the web there's a lot of like The Matrix ripped off Dark City stuff.
I've actually seen it the other way around. People don't realize Dark City came out first.
No.
Oh. Well, that's just idiots.
Younger millennials with their avocado toast and their
and they're not saving enough of their money,
they're ruining the wine
they're
industry.
spending it on booze and women.
Exactly. Oh yeah, that's right. And
anyway,
movies, booze, and women.
The thing that I say to that is, the Wachowskis did it so much better.
Yeah.
The Matrix is a movie that I will defy any sleepy person to fall asleep during.
That's true.
And it punctuates the story with elements of such if it's not action, it's thrills. And I feel like Dark City as a movie has no interest in entertaining the audience. I think the main objectives of Dark City is to create an interesting world, have a beautiful tableau for each scene, have it all, sort of coalesce within the world, and tell this story, which really pays off towards the end. And they don't really think about the audience. I don't think the audience is in mind. And what happened was they played this movie for an audience, test audiences, and they hated it. And that's where the narration came from. And it's funny because Proyas says on the documentary, he was like, it made me doubt myself. Like, I was like, I thought I had this great thing, and I did sort of doubt myself, so I wanted to fix it, But I feel like one of the things that maybe needed to happen was somebody to say, like, yes, you've got the bones of her. I mean, it is a great story. It's a really interesting story. But I feel like the pacing is a little wonky.
Yeah.
The storytelling is a little wonky. I mean, I for doing a little research on this, I watched some scenes of The Matrix, and the kids wanted to know. My oldest wanted to know what blue pill meant because he saw it referenced somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, that's a shame. He's seeing that reference somewhere on the dark web.
Yeah, dark web. It's I shouldn't have let him use that dark
laptop.
Yeah,
don't let him use that.
But anyway, I showed them that scene, and just that one scene, which is about 4 minutes long, which is where Morpheus is sitting in a chair and Neo is sitting in a chair, and there's a glass of water between them, is so much more like viscerally interesting than anything that happens in Dark City. I feel like every scene of Dark City requires you to sort of be like, I can kind of see what they're going for, and I'll give them a little bit of credit for that. Like, that's what I feel like. Like, if it was my brother that made this movie, I'd be like, he did such a nice job. I feel like it doesn't seem like very extremely professional people were doing it. Like, it just doesn't seem like an actual movie in a lot of ways. Like, any actual filmmaker would have fired Kiefer Sutherland on day one.
Well, yeah, again, you don't know.
We're back to Kiefer. Yeah. One thing that I thought of while you were talking about that, and the idea that The Matrix ripped off Dark City or vice versa, is if the second and third Matrix movies had kept that level of near perfection, that the first movie had.
Such a letdown.
They'd be unstoppable.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I mean...
There was no Dark City 2 and 3 for them to rip off, so maybe that's...
Wah, wah. Dark City is much better than The Matrix 2 and 3. I'll give it that.
Well, I wrote down, while I was thinking about this, the description of what is Dark City. I said The Matrix without the Kung Fu.
The Matrix without it being entertaining.
It's a different kind of entertaining. I think the action scenes in The Matrix are far and above. There's no discussion of that. And that was Goyer. He wrote the action scenes. Even at the end, he kind of ripped off manga.
So I feel like the end of this movie is totally redonkulous. Like, he's floating and the bad guy stranger are floating and they're both constipated looking at each other while stuff flies out of their heads at one another. That is not entertaining. And that's what the Harry Potter movies ran into, was we're going to point our wands at one another, and that's not entertaining. And that's what's happening here at the end. But they wrote themselves into a corner. It's like, now he's more powerful than the most powerful stranger, so how do we prove it? By, like, constipating at one another. And I don't think that I mean, really, I was just like, okay. Like, the idea of Kiefer switching the syringes and giving him the syringe of the pre-programmed memories, which gave him the power, is excellent. I think that's a wonderful...
Yeah.
Trained him. And there's another
parallel
with the Matrix.
You're right.
The idea of having knowledge injected into your brain.
Yeah.
I know Kung Fu. Well, he knew tuning then. So there is a similarity there.
Oh, there's a lot of similarities. Yeah. But I'm going to go to the mat for saying as if the Wachowski... I don't think that... No. I think it was one of those things where collective brains just came up with the same thing. But even if the Wachowskis totally ripped off the screenplay, I'm glad they did, because it's such a better movie.
They did it. Yeah, that is so much better.
So much better. But it's a lovely little... what I thought about while I was watching it was Black Mirror, which is a really good hour and a half Twilight Zone kind of a thing. And I feel like this could be an hour-long Black Mirror, and I would just be like, that's a pretty good episode, right? They're in space with aliens. But I don't think, and this is my beef, is that I don't think it transcends that level of, like, well, it's a really great film. I don't know. Maybe
we were having a discussion about something else, about another film about a week ago, and we were talking about the purpose of film, about imparting information. You said there's other things that film can be used for besides telling a story. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about that several times when I was thinking about this movie. What do you mean? How do you mean that? Because I'm trying to understand. Because that's kind of what I feel about this.
You like the vibe of this.
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
But maybe that goes back to growing up on science fiction when I was a kid. And
it's a very fully realized science fiction universe.
But it also had, the feel of it is maybe a little closer to my heart than yours, because I grew up watching reruns of movies from the 40s on a 19-inch black and white TV. So I remember that era. I remember the cars, like the car that Bumstead drives, that old Ford.
Right.
I knew those cars.
I feel like William Hurt could be trying a little harder, too. Like, I don't know what happened to William Hurt, but, like, somewhere after broadcast news, he just seemed to stop trying quite as hard. And then in the history of violence, he was like, "I'm back, baby," and then he just like stopped trying again. I don't know what's going on with him. Like I think he's a very compelling performer, and I think he's fine in this. But it's it's pretty clear that he's not giving it his all.
It was understated.
Yeah,
it really was.
One of my favorite lines is nobody ever listens. To
yeah,
me.
that was his best line.
It seems like he's really trying in that scene.
Yeah.
And some of the other ones, it just seems like he's floating through the scenes, and I don't know. Rufus Sewell, old crazy eye Sewell, he almost got supplanted by Tom Cruise, almost got supplanted by Johnny Depp.
For this
when this movie was in the Disney and 20th Century Fox iterations before, and then it got dumped down to New Line, and then it became Rufus Sewell. It was much more famous actresses than Jennifer Connelly until it became this iteration of the thing.
I think
they had to shut down production of the film for 6 months because they thought maybe Tom Cruise was going to be the lead. And so in order to negotiate with his people, they stopped production of the movie in order to make sure he wasn't going to be in it. And it's not surprising to me. The guy that made Eyes Wide Shut and Vanilla Sky, Minority Report, Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah,
like,
I could see Tom Cruise being interested
kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you could see a Scientologist enjoying
exactly.
Dark City as a storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so dudes, I have a question for you. Is this a metaphor for anything?
The movie, a metaphor with the aliens trying to capture human souls. Isn't it just just life, right? Just a metaphor about the life we're living and what does it all mean, right?
Sure.
I see a couple. I look at it a couple of different ways. One is very introspective, having to do with the spiral, the reoccurring spiral theme. I wondered about that. Whether is it that you're the rat in the maze, like the one in the experiment that Schreiber was doing, the doctor.
Yeah.
Or is
That's
it
what every psychiatrist's office looks
I'm
like,
sure
by the way. It's
I'm
this
sure.
green glowing rat maze.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be right with you.
Okay.
The listener wasn't able to see Eric's mind there, but
the other one is that circling in a personal thing where he was trying to figure out who he actually was, which became the deciding factor at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And that's hard to say which of those things it is. Now, the idea of the strangers and the humans, where you've got an elitist group that is feeding false information to the general population to control them. I don't know, what might that possibly sound like?
Well, and the other thing is, Savior becomes more powerful than the powerful, and then becomes in control of everything, so much so that he changes everything and then is an all-powerful being that lives among us. I mean, this is he basically becomes the god of Dark City, so much so that he changes it into Light City at the end, right?
Or Neo at the end of the Matrix.
But
same thing.
All Neo does is fly away, though. Like, he turns dark to light invents Shell Beach for his own. But for me, it's like a really interesting story would be like, here's this guy who's got, all power over his whole universe, and nobody else has that. what happens then? That could be a horror movie. This guy gets bored and starts maiming all the people, and is at the end of the movie, they're trying to tell you all is well because he's on Shell Beach with Jennifer Connelly. But I think a trickier movie would be like, is this okay that he has all these powers? Mm-hmm.
Well, it's the old absolute power thing. What do you do with that kind of power?
Right. And what he does is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right, because he floods it, and they hate water.
No, yeah.
And they create Shell Beach, which is against their whole ethos. And he hangs out with Jennifer Connelly. I don't know. Yeah, 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up. As Annie, right? Or Emma Annie. That was her name.
Well, whatever. It is.
Yeah.
So and so.
Right.
So, Gary.
Yeah.
Do we have a rating system?
We do have a rating system. It's a 4-star rating system.
What do the stars mean?
Well, 4 stars is a well-deserved classic status. 3 stars, excuse me, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good movie. Haven't seen it in a while, but it's good, right? 2 stars is... what was 2 stars?
So that's why I haven't watched it.
So that's why I haven't watched it in a while. And 1 star is, we were young. We didn't know any better. We were dumb back then.
We were young.
Yeah. So what would you give Dark City?
Well, I'm going to jump out there and say 3.5.
3.5.
It's not perfect, but the way it looks, the world that's created, and the feeling of the world...
I like when the
really
strangers float away from the camera in a group of 6, down the...
Yeah, that's something that I remember.
It's pretty good.
Trailers.
It's
quite a bit, yeah.
That's a good image.
What will you give Dark City, Eric?
I'll give it 2 stars.
I'll give it 2.5 stars.
It's boring in the middle. Cut some of that boring out and hire somebody else to be the psychiatrist.
Yeah, or keep
that
it, just tell them
made a
to
big
change
difference for you.
Yeah. I mean, I can't tolerate that. That is one of the worst performances of all of cinema. He is trying something and failing. One interesting thing about Kiefer in the documentary that I learned is he got bored outside of his trailer and learned to lasso like a cowboy. So he would have actors come over and tap them on the back, and they would run away from them, and he would lasso them around the ankle and pull them, and they would fall down because he was so bored. Because it took so long to set up these shots.
Oh, right.
That the actors would just sit around for 12 hours, whatnot. That's what he did. That's what he would do. So it turns out Kiefer is kind of an interesting person, but I just think the choice he made here, I feel like it's interesting that Johnny Depp was considered, because Johnny Depp has basically made the same choice that Kiefer made in this movie for everything he's been in since Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It's if I do the silliest voice I can, that's an interesting choice.
Acting.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of My So-Called Podcast.
Yeah. If you're still with us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not. I've checked out.
Gary was on his email. I was like, Gary, you're on the podcast.
So, Don, thanks for being on an episode of My So-Called Podcast.
Thank you for having me here.
Do you have a web presence, Don?
No.
Okay.
I hide out. I'm on the dark.
It was just on the dark web. So plug the black tar heroin into your earphone jack, and you might hear from Don. Gary, you're on the web.
Yeah, I'm at Twitter at Gary Linton.
And I'm at the Eric Spiegel. Right. We're at My So-Called Podcast.
My So-Called Pod.
The Gmail address is
My So-Called
Podcast at gmail.com. We're on the Facebook. Like us. Review us, love us, and we'll be back in a couple weeks. And what decade will we be talking about, Gary?
The 90s.
Weird.
Radical.
Gnarly.